Welcome to Workplace Conversations. Real people, real stories, real workplaces.
Today on Workplace Conversations, we are talking about AI. And we're asking a bigger question around AI in the workplace. So AI, obviously everyone's talking about it at the moment. But today we're going to talk about why AI projects fail, what human-led AI means, and what people are so anxious about when it comes to implementing AI projects in the workplace. We're also going to touch on what leadership can look like in the world of intelligent work. And today I'd like to welcome Dr Peta Chirgwin, one of the most intelligent people I have met.
You don't know very many people in Sandra.
Who is an expert on intelligent work. So Peta is a leader in automation, responsible AI, the future of work transitions, and you have a PhD in human factors in mining automation and remote operations. I think I've got all that right. And you're also the CEO of Chameleon Metal Group. Mm-hmm. So, Peta, welcome to Workplace Conversations. Can you give us a little bit about your background?
Yes. So, predominantly working in mining for the last 25 odd years.
Yes.
A lot of that time in technology roles. So what I was seeing when I was working in mining was that they were bringing in lots of really cool tech and shiny things, and unfortunately they weren't seeing the return on investment that they'd expected.
Right.
And some of the reasons for that was because they just weren't bringing the people along on the journey. The flip side of that on the operations side was the people were anxious about some of the technology. They were feeling sick about some of the technology. They were getting the blame for the technology not working,
right,
or for the results not being what was expected. And that prompted me then to do my PhD. So the PhD in mining automation initially was this massive 15 thesis in one kind of thing.
Wow,
I wanted to explore, what's the impact on society? What's the impact on
Yep.
the workplace, the productivity, et cetera, et cetera. So I was able to sort of rein that in a little bit. But, the questions are still relevant today,
yes,
for all of those things. And it's just expanded a little bit more when we're talking about intelligent systems like AI and machine learning and robotics. So I was really interested in that, and also the psychosocial side of that, the well-being for people. So that's kind of where I focused for my human factors part of that degree.
Yeah, right. And so you're back. You worked in the US for a bit, and you're back in Perth now. And we are lucky enough to have got to know you here at AIMWA. And earlier in the year, you did a keynote for us at one of our conferences, and it was outstanding and answered, or actually probably didn't answer, but asked a lot of questions around AI implementation and really got people thinking about where things are heading and, grappling with some of those bigger questions. So the presentation you gave was called The Choice Before Us. What is the choice before us, Peta?
Well, I'll just correct something. So I didn't live in the US. I was working for a company based out of the US. But
I got that wrong.
Yes. So lucky enough to be staying here in Australia. But what that gave me was a unique perspective on what was happening in the US, particularly around AI and how we were implementing that here in Australia, and, the effects and concerns that people had, and also the uptake of it or failure of uptake, if that was, what was happening, and the reasons behind that, and people were talking to me a lot, leaders were talking to me a lot about why they either have introduced AI or weren't introducing AI or had reservations about it.
You got that US perspective without actually having to leave home.
Yes, which was a really nice time to be staying here in Australia.
Yes, I bet. So the presentation, The Choice Before Us, you framed it, that was what it was called, and you could have heard a pin drop through your delivery of that keynote. What is the choice before us when it comes to AI, Peta?
Well, I think we in Australia are in a really unique position. Some other countries have gone full throttle with AI and deploying AI and potentially have made some big mistakes when it comes to AI. They've made some big risks, but they've also, opened up huge opportunities for countries around the world and organisations around the world. Some countries have started already implementing regulations and legislation around AI, and depending, if you talk about the US, they've got different states, they've got some different regulations and legislations depending on what state you're in. So I think we're in a unique opportunity that we have the ability to be able to take the best and the worst and make it, what's going to work for us here in Australia.
Yeah.
If we don't do that soon, then we're at risk of sending not just our natural resources offshore, but our people resources and our data and the systems, subscriptions and things like that. You know, all the revenue will be going offshore as well. So we're in a really good spot, I think. We're at this crossroads where we can really start to think about, how we're using AI and how we're using it in a way that is going to benefit everyone. So there is a term called mutually assured destruction. I prefer to think about it a little bit more positively. And, having listened to my keynote, you may have thought that I was a little bit pessimistic about things, but I did try and show both sides of the coin. Yeah. And I think, the opposite of that is mutually assured prosperity. So how do we do that in a way? How do we introduce AI and create opportunities in a way that is mutually beneficial for organisations, for people, for the society, and all those things that I wanted to try and cover in my PhD. Yeah. How do we use AI as the tool rather than becoming obsolete because of AI?
I really do like mutually assured prosperity more than destruction because I'm a half glass full person. So let's go with that. But I guess what you're saying is we're really at a point in time as a country where we need to make decisions, and we're lucky because we can learn from the mistakes of others, which will help us make decisions in a different way and potentially set us up for success, as opposed to, not learning from others.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And also having decisions made for us because we've implemented systems that belong to another country or to someone offshore. Yeah. And having those decisions made on our behalf. Yes. Let's grab the opportunity to make the decisions that work for us.
Got it. I feel like I've been talking to a lot of people in the AI space recently, and I feel like there is this, it's almost like this race to get things done because of what's happening globally, and people are so concerned that Australia is way, behind the eight ball and not in line with particularly the US and China. Is that true? Is that right? Do you think?
I definitely think that people are nervous about it. People think, we need to hurry up and get there and, maybe make our own sovereign AI. Yes. And, what does that mean for Australia? I need to know all these different tools, and then the next week there's all these other tools that come out, and, I haven't learned the ones from last week and I've got to learn all these ones, and there starts to be a little bit of panic and anxiety around that. But I think it's more around understanding how AI works for us, whatever that is. Yeah. And of course, when we say AI, we mean different things by AI. Yep. A lot of people, when they're talking about AI, they're just talking about generative AI. Yes. And those things have changed quite rapidly. Yes, yes. Again, here in Australia, particularly here in Western Australia, we've done very large organisational type changes. Mm-hmm. We were the first in the world to introduce automation in mining. Yes. And we did it on a big scale. So we've got a lot of people who understand organisational change with technology and doing that at a fairly rapid pace. I mean, we did stall for a little while until the time was right for us to introduce that, but then we led the way. Yeah. We're not doing, we haven't been leading the way with AI, but we can lead it. We can lead the way to do it in a way that is beneficial for society and our people.
Okay, so I guess we want to talk about that sort of power balance between humans and tech. So if we're adopting technology, how do you decide who should hold the power when it comes to decision making, and what does that mean in a workplace, and what does it look like when technology is leading and then humans are trying to lead, and I guess it's just I think it's hard for me to even unpack as I'm talking about it. So do you understand the question?
I think so. So I guess this kind of points to the index that I've created called the Human Authority Index
Yes.
to try and help people understand what that question is.
Yeah.
What does it mean for humans to hold authority when it comes to AI?
Yeah.
And what does human authority-centered work design look like? Because we often don't consider the work design that comes before
Yes.
introducing AI, because we're in such a rush to not be last to implement AI, and we don't want to get left behind because our competitors are using AI in a way that's helping them. So let's just put it in and we'll work everything else out later, rather than taking a strategic approach and thinking to the future on, what system do I actually need? How is this going to work towards my organisation's strategy and goals
Yeah.
and my longer term plan, and then implementing it that way and being able to create the work design to go along with it. So people often don't fully understand the complexity behind the AI that they might be implementing, and where the decisions are being made, who owns the decisions, where that decision authority sits. And if something goes wrong, who is putting their hand up to say, I own that. I was able to accept the decision, turn the decision off, turn the system off, or just let it run with whatever decision. But ultimately, whatever decision was made, I own it. For example, if a piece of autonomous equipment that is operated by an AI system were to cause a fatality, for example,
Yes.
who owns that?
Yeah.
That ultimate decision for whatever it was that happened, who is the ultimate person in authority, and who has the authority to be able to turn the system off and say no? This decision might cost us $1 million, but we're putting lives at risk now, so we're going to switch it off. And a lot of companies don't understand that. They don't know who has that ultimate. They haven't appointed someone to have that decision authority, and this is a risk. So, being able to put that into the workplace strategy before we actually implement, or as we're implementing AI.
Yeah.
The other thing I've seen organisations, even with the automation that we've introduced and some other technologies that we've introduced, particularly in mining, the data and the data governance sits with the system owner offshore.
Yeah.
So then the organisation, when they want to obtain their own company data that's been generated through these systems, have to apply to the system owner and generally have to pay a fee to get the information to come back. We don't want to be held to that. I don't want to be, as an organisation, generating my own data and then needing to pay for it to get it back.
It's almost like being held to ransom.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And when we don't have humans in authority and we don't have humans making that ultimate decision, we can be held to ransom, as another term for it.
Wow. Okay. It's wild to me how much, we're learning about this as we go. And I can definitely see that race. People are like, we have to implement, but they're not looking at how it's going to affect in the long term, and it's not necessarily strategic. Mm-hmm. And the other conversations that I've been having with people is the decision around AI is sometimes being pushed by the IT department or the tech department, and people are implementing systems, and then all of a sudden the rest of the organisation has to play catch up, and the system is not necessarily what the organisation needs, and they have to roll back. So there's this tension between organisation, like throughout the organisation, through different departments, about who owns that space and who owns that. So what would you recommend there, Peta? How do you sort of resolve that tension with an organisation? What would be best practice there?
Well, I think, this is the whole fit for purpose, making sure that something's fit for purpose. And traditionally we have seen a bit of a divide between IT, OT,
yes,
and we thought the Internet of Things was going to sort of solve that, and it didn't really. And even with that, then we've got a whole other side of our workforce that doesn't work with IT or OT, and now we're sort of merging all of this together, particularly when it comes to AI and automation and robotics. So having that strategy in place, and when I say strategy, we really need to think about what is the tool that's fit for what is the problem that we're trying to solve, and what technology are we going to use that is fit for the purpose of that, and then what tasks do we need to do to achieve that?
Yeah.
What roles do we have in place currently that need to change as a result of these new tasks perhaps that get created? Are we creating completely new roles? Do we have a role that exists, or are we trying to retrofit an existing role into a new task that maybe people don't understand. And then what do the skills and the capability uplift look like in my organisation?
Yeah.
So we've seen in the news quite a few organisations now that have sort of backflipped on their strategy, and I'm using that term loosely, where they've made a whole bunch of people redundant, and then they've realised that the technology wasn't quite there yet, and they've lost some other skills along the way, some knowledge about the organisation, and they've had to rehire back.
Wow.
Which can also not sit very well with the workforce. You know, you're then bringing back potentially some disgruntled employees that were dismissed. They weren't collaborated with very well in the first place. They've been dismissed. And then you're trying to bring that capability back into your workplace and say, well, my bad, come back. We won't do it
Sorry,
again.
we need you.
We actually need
we
you.
won't do it again, but we might.
Exactly. So it doesn't sit very, very well with people. The other thing is, particularly, I'll talk about automation again because it's a really great use case example. When we were implementing automation to start with, there were some companies that kept it confidential.
Yes.
It was very hush-hush, and I'm talking about equipment automation, very hush-hush. We don't want to scare people. We don't want people leaving because they think their jobs are on the line.
Yeah.
So we just won't tell them until, the week before we're going to turn this system on or, whatever. There might be a few rumours around, but we're not actually going to tell them too much about it. That creates anxiety and uncertainty that is really disruptive for the workforce.
Yes.
And people start making up their own storyline as to what's happening. The other problem is we see a very small talent pool then of people who are able to use the system that we want to, that we're implementing.
Yeah.
And everyone's chasing the same small talent pool. So because everyone's implementing this same technology, or similar technologies, then they have to start fighting for the small talent pool rather than bringing their employees along and saying, okay, we've considered this. This was our problem. This is the technology that we're going to use to solve this problem. These are the new skills that need to be created because of that. These are the new tasks.
Yeah.
These are the new roles or how our roles need to adapt and the work design needs to change.
Yeah.
And we're going to upskill our current workforce because we want to retain knowledge that we have because it's so beneficial for our organisation for people to have currency and fluency in the organisation that they're in. So we're going to upskill them into new roles and new places.
And then you're not fighting over the same
and you're not fighting over that same talent pool.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess that was one of my questions. So, when leadership does not communicate openly and doesn't prepare the workforce for those changes, what's the outcome there?
Yeah.
So
that is it. And it also creates, anxiety. We psychosocial safety is sort of getting thrown around pretty loosely at the moment. One of the reasons is people don't fully understand what that means, and also it's been fairly newly introduced for us into the acts and the regulations.
Yeah.
So now leaders are accountable for that. But when we're disrupting our workforce by not saying anything and creating that anxiety by not saying anything, we're effectively creating psychosocial risks.
Yeah.
And again, people will start making up their own narratives as to what's going on.
Yeah.
It also doesn't create confidence in the workforce when their leaders don't say anything.
Yes.
Because then we start to think maybe our leaders don't actually know what's going on.
Yep.
Maybe they don't understand how to use this system or process or whatever is being implemented. So why would I trust them and why would I trust the system?
Right.
If they don't understand.
So I guess what you're saying is be as open as possible.
Yes.
Bring the workforce on the journey.
Mm-hmm.
Allow them to see what you're trying to achieve. Yep. Develop trust to allow the workforce to be able to be skilled up or upskilled.
Yep.
And then it's potentially a successful project.
That's right. And the other thing, you then are creating champions for your workforce and for the system. When people are brought along on the journey, you don't know necessarily what other skills people are bringing with them.
Yeah.
So people are doing things, on their days off just for fun, so they might actually know a lot more about something than you actually realise. So being able to bring them on the journey, then you all of a sudden have this huge knowledge bank of people. You might have your project team who you think are the experts, but then all of a sudden you find these other skills that contribute to whatever it is that you're building towards, and you have then these champions that can really push that forward for you.
So let's go back to AI and talking about redesigning work. and how I think, as you said, people are putting, AI in and then having to pull it back because they haven't looked at workflows, or they're thinking this is going to work, but it's not really going to work. And then they, have to reassess everything. But I think based on what you said in your keynote, really that is because people are implementing AI without actually looking at work design.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yeah. It's like trying to put a Band-Aid on something that maybe wasn't working properly, or you've hurt yourself, so let's just put a Band-Aid on and I hope that it's going to hold.
Yeah.
We've got a problem. We're going to use AI to patch it.
Yep.
But we haven't really considered what other risks we're introducing or what other knock-on effects we might be introducing there.
So how would you do that? So I guess if you're looking at redesigning the work,
yes,
where do you start? Because when I'm thinking about this, it's mind-blowing to me, even just in the context of AIMWA. I have ideas of where you would start, but I guess it starts at the very top, right?
Yes. Well, yeah, it's an interesting question because technology is changing so quickly.
Yeah.
You really have to be able to adapt quite fluidly with your work design and change. Yeah. But we are way behind.
Right.
Even when we're talking about technologies that have been introduced a decade or two ago, we haven't changed roles a whole lot more. When you have a look at roles, we've still got a lot of traditional roles. And again, I'll bring it back into the context of mining automation because it's a great example. We don't have the mine controller role. Mm-hmm. We don't have an ANSCO code, for example. And an ANSCO code is the role type.
Yeah.
So that role doesn't exist. The closest role to that is a mining engineer or a plant controller.
Okay.
But for someone who operates autonomous mining equipment or just mining equipment in a control room, there isn't a role type for that position.
Right.
So then we bring in AI and other intelligent systems, and we're creating more uncertainty into what does a role look like and who owns this role and who owns this skill, and potentially we could be completely redesigning what that work looks like and who owns certain tasks and things, rather than just thinking, well, I thought you'd take that because kind of fits in your role.
Kind of fits.
Yeah, you're an engineer, so let's put that there, and you're here for 24 hours in the day, so you can have that role. Or that task, rather than actually thinking, about it. So really taking a systematic approach, auditing the whole process, understanding what actually happens here. What does work mean? Not just what does our process look like on paper, but actually what happens, how does that happen, who does the tasks currently, what issues are we trying to solve, what are we trying to introduce, and why? And then how do we distribute those tasks in a meaningful way? And do we actually need a new role, or can we cover these in the roles that we currently have? So it is a huge question, and I am doing some research on it at the moment in what I mentioned before, the human authority-centered work design, so making sure that we maintain human authority within those systems, but also understanding how we can create an audit and strategy and blueprint for introducing new roles with intelligent systems like AI.
In my head, I've just got this huge org chart where you're looking at every single role and going, do we need that? Or if we implement something, is that completely different? I can almost see it just changing completely.
Yes, and I guess it depends where you are on your change journey, how large your organisation is.
Yeah, of course.
You might only have 5 people, so not a huge org chart. But yes, we want to understand who does what. Yeah. How do they do it? Why do they do it? Where are people cutting corners? Where are people being the system integrator because the systems aren't talking to each other?
Yeah, I think we need to unpack that as well. So because you talked about that a lot, but where people are becoming the systems integrator around tech that is put in that people don't really understand. Can you just tell me about that a little bit?
Yes. So I think some technologies or some systems in isolation work perfectly.
Yes.
You'll have systems engineers that say, there's nothing wrong with this, and I've worked with quite a few of them. My system works really well, and they're not wrong. Yeah. It does. It works great. We spend a lot of money on making sure that technology works well. We have some really clever people who are making sure that technology works well. But when applied into operations, into our workforce, into an operational capability, whatever organisation it is, whatever industry that is, we haven't considered how does this particular piece of technology work well within this organisation with the processes that we have currently in place, and then how does it work with this other system that we introduced. This manager thought this system worked really well. It almost does exactly the same thing as this manager's system that he brought in or she brought in. That does, a few extra things. This one has a few extra things. But then when they come together, some of those things that they do similarly conflict. The data doesn't necessarily transfer across the way that we expected it to be between the systems, or they just don't talk at all.
Yeah.
The output that we're expecting doesn't happen between the two systems because of those reasons, that there might be some differences in the data or the way the data can get interpreted.
Mm-hmm.
So then you see the person in between starting to become that integrator. So making sure this is the outputs from this system, this is the outputs from this system. Now I'm going to merge them together, potentially put them into another system so that it becomes into a deployable, readable format that can go distribute to wherever it needs to go. Times that by 10 or 15, or with an AI system that is making decisions every millisecond. All of a sudden you've got this person getting overwhelmed. The cognitive load on a person then becomes extreme. And potentially when we're talking about work design, that is an area then that we can start to see there's a risk. If people are doing things that aren't the way that they're supposed to be done in the job description or in the work process, because they're becoming an integrator from a system, potentially that's an opportunity for AI or automation to be able to fix that, but also it might need to be a redesign of the role.
Redesign of the role. And I guess that would sometimes be invisible work.
Yes, 100%. And usually when you ask people, how does sorry, I'm having a bit of a laugh because it just reminded me, I did this sort of audit of autonomous systems when I was doing my PhD, and I went into a remote operating centre and I had all the processes. I could see, I saw their training manuals, I saw all their SOPs, I could see how work was supposed to work. And I said to the operations that I wanted to actually sit down and do the role, because there is invisible work that people forget about, or, they just don't think too much about it, that they're the ones that are integrating that until you start getting down into the detail of it. So I wanted to actually do the different roles so that I could see if there was anything. At the same time, I was working alongside people so I could ask them questions. Yeah. And the reason I was laughing was because I've got pretty good hearing, and I could hear people in the background saying, I think she's an undercover boss. Don't tell her anything.
Oh, wow.
But genuinely, I was asking them questions because I wanted to know, how can we make your job better? Yeah. How can we make, improve what you're doing here, not just improve for productivity's sake, but improve your life, improve your working life. Yeah. But they were a little bit nervous, and I guess this comes with change and introduction to change. I wasn't introduced very well what I was doing there as a PhD. I tried to introduce myself to say, I'm studying a PhD and this is what I want to do, but it's not really something that's done every day. So, people were a little bit nervous about this random person coming in and doing this role, asking questions about their job.
And so then they would have thought you were in there to see if they even needed a job, I guess.
Potentially. Yeah.
Did you win them over?
Well, it took a few conversations and some understanding, and then they read some of my publications to understand that actually I was there for that purpose.
And so what did you discover after doing that role?
Exactly that there are lots of processes that go hidden that people do, and a lot of pressure from individuals to be able to perform what a system should be performing, or potentially what we could improve on, but people were just doing it because that's just the way they've been taught to do it, or that's just how it is.
Yeah, so it's really, I'm trying to just reflect this back the way that I understand it. So really, if we want to maximise automation and AI, it's redesigning, having a look at the entire organisation and redesigning work.
Yes. I mean, we might not have to, depending on the organisation, of course. You might have your work design schmick. Yeah. Everyone's happy, everyone's working well, the systems are great. You've only implemented a couple of different things and they're doing exactly the role that they need to do. Yeah. So it depends on scale of change and scale of implementation that you're trying to put in there. But it's definitely something to consider. Do we still have the right tasks for the right job and the right people and the right processes in place?
Yeah. So I guess there is, I mean, you see it in LinkedIn, you just have to open and look at the feed and everyone's talking about, anxiety around AI and work, and there's anxiety around organisations saying we're not moving, fast enough, or we're moving too fast, or, what guardrails have we got in place? What's the governance? When you sort of distill it all back, what do you think people are most anxious about when it comes to AI implementation or AI in general?
Uncertainty, I think. It's the not knowing. It's not knowing what they don't know.
Yeah.
And the anxiety comes from different levels.
Yeah.
So the anxiety that comes from a director is going to be a different anxiety that comes, from your frontline worker.
Yeah.
So I think being from a leader's perspective, really understanding the business, and we've spoken about this a few times, but really understanding where you want your business to go, and being able to explain to your employees why a change is being made, why a system is being looked at, why a process might be changing, and this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
So open and honest and transparent. I think people are always going to be anxious to some degree about change, and the uncertainty of things.
Yeah.
But I do think that's a reality for our future, is that we have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable with change, because things are changing quite quickly.
Things are changing quickly, but it's not like we haven't been here before.
Yes.
Things change. I think that's the thing. Things change quickly all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The tools are changing more rapidly than what we've seen. But if you have a look at work 20 years ago, it's completely different to work now. So I think that's, probably something for us to all remember and calm down about a little bit. We're all still human and it's going to be okay.
Yes.
But it's just probably, do you think educating yourself around AI and making sure that you are understanding tools, or understanding what you can use it for, and making sure that you're upskilling yourself?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's one of the best ways for anything to be able to be prepared, to prepare yourself for the future, is to upskill yourself. I've got quite a few pieces of paper, and that's probably just because I'm nosy. I like to be curious about things, but it's not just about doing a university degree or, doing a certificate course at TAFE or whatever it might be. It might just be YouTube, getting onto YouTube or getting onto one of those AI tool. They've got free videos on how do we set these up, so getting on there to do that, getting in, listening to podcasts, listening to people speaking about what's happening, and also understanding what's happening within your organisation.
Yeah.
When I worked for some large organisations, I quite often would go onto Seek just to have a look at what new roles were coming up in my organisation.
Interesting.
And to see, because at large, I'm talking global organisations. So, that's an indication of changes potentially that's being made.
Yeah.
Not necessarily saying it's a recommendation of something that you should do in your organisation. However, leading indicators of change are things like that.
Yeah.
And usually before a job ad goes out, there's been a whole lot of other conversation that's happening in the background. But sometimes frontline workers don't always have the opportunity to be part of those conversations. Yeah. So, and that I think then is from the leader's perspective, is actually being transparent with your workforce as to what the approach is and the why for the approach. Yeah. So they don't have to get on Seek and see where changes are being made, because they already know ahead of things going out.
So I guess there's obviously resistance to change, right? But there's also reasonable concerns. So what would you see as a reasonable concern for people when AI is being implemented or AI is being introduced into a workplace?
For me, I think one of the biggest concerns for me personally is that people lose agency and authority. And this is why I've created the Human Authority Index and the work design. And what I mean by that is we can still have humans in the loop. We can still have humans in control, or, as lip service. We can say we've got a human that sits there and the human understands the decisions that are being made. But what that actually means is you might just be sitting there at your desk and all of a sudden your day used to be a joy for you. You used to like going to work. You used to be able to have critical thinking. You used to be able to apply yourself, feel like you're adding value to the organisation. All of a sudden, you're just clicking a button accepting decisions that have been made by a system and potentially not doing much thinking for yourself, no creativity, not feeling like your job has any meaning or purpose or value for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's huge. So human agency and having meaning and purpose in your life and in your job is massive.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, work is more than just a paycheck.
Of course.
You know, it's a social place. It's a place to be able to grow, to learn, and to contribute.
Yeah.
And if you take all of that away from people, then what are you left with?
Yep.
So I think that's really important. And for me, that is one of the biggest risks. If we don't bring people along on the journey and give them true authority, then what are we here for?
But also it'd be a massive risk if AI is making those decisions and they're not making them right.
Well,
I guess that's the thing. And after a period of time of just clicking a button, you're just going to continue to click that button, aren't you?
Yes.
And then one of those decisions is going to be
that's
not great.
That's right. So, so then you start to come up with complacency.
Yeah.
And so we were talking earlier about sociotechnical safety, and what does that actually mean?
Yeah, what does that mean?
So we're talking about psychosocial safety, and sociotechnical safety is taking that a little bit more. So looking at complex systems and systems of systems, and bringing them all in. So when we're bringing in new systems, and we did talk about the human being the integrator, and we've talked about work design and now meaning and purpose. So sociotechnical safety is being able to have control over all of those things and an understanding of where all those risks are within systems of systems, and a person sits within systems.
Yeah.
So bringing, before we used to speak about physical risks, and now we've removed physical risk because people aren't doing manual tasks anymore. We've got robotics for that. So we've removed some harm there. Yeah. And now instead we're putting the harm into the human brain, and I spoke about that in my keynote. So now we're bringing new risks into the human brain. And so when you were talking about complacency, this is a risk. Yes. The opposite of that is cognitive overload. We're talking about people being systems integrators, and there's a whole bunch of different risks that we're now putting inside a human brain. And what that means for productivity is huge. What it means for return on investment, and what it means for society as a whole is massive. Yeah. If we have people who are unwell, these socio-technical risks, and people that don't feel like they're contributing, they don't feel like they're being respected, they don't have authority, they're not contributing, they have cognitive overload, underload. Yep. The risk is that the system is going to make a decision that is the wrong decision. Someone can get hurt, or a financially, it could be a financially incorrect decision, and a huge mistake, reputational mistakes.
Yes.
The list goes on and on. So it's not just within the individual or within the organisation. We start to see the risks multiply.
And I guess these are just risks where we're only beginning to understand as we're implementing things. So we don't even really know all the risks yet.
Well, true. And I mean, I think the risks exist. A lot of these risks exist already. Yeah. We just have more control over them, or in the past we've had more control over them. Yeah,
okay. I get it. So when people are talking about the human in the loop, and that's used everywhere when it comes to writing a piece for LinkedIn, or, implementing a task that's quite complex. What does human in the loop actually mean the best possible way? Because I think people are, there's a human in the loop, but people aren't checking things. People are, so I guess the thing is you need to own your work when it comes to the use of AI as a human. That is your work. So you need to have ownership over that if that is in your role. But also, what is best practice for human in the loop in your mind?
Well, I'll start with worst practice. I mean, human in the loop is we just put a prompt in and say, create me a 54-page report to the board that talks about, everything that's happening within my organisation.
Yes.
Spits it out. Oh, you probably don't even, I was going to say it spits it out and you email it off. You don't need to do that. It'll do that for you. Sends the email, sends a message, to the board.
That's scary.
And it's all done.
Yeah.
Yes, I had a human in the loop. I had, I was somehow part of that process. Very minimal part of that loop.
Yeah.
But there was a human there. Great.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
No.
And not ideal for you or for the organisation. There's risks. Yeah. So all those risks that we talk about, so reputational risk is a big one. If we're sending a message to the board to say, we've just sacked 50,000 people in our organisation, we've lost all this money because it misunderstood the prompt slightly, or it's made something
Yeah.
up, or hallucinated something,
Yeah.
and sent it off, and we haven't approved. We haven't actually read through it and approved it. Then we've got huge risks.
Yeah.
You imagine the shareholders seeing something like that for an organisation.
Yeah.
So ideally, for me, human in the loop is having this human authority that I keep on talking about. So people being able to make effective, creative decisions using AI as a tool. So the system then becomes the amplifier to the human rather than the human just working alongside the system or for the system, for example.
Human in the loop. All right, best practice. You talk about stewardship in your keynote. You talked about stewardship in AI. What do you mean by that?
A good example of that is when we were talking before about sending things offshore.
Yeah.
So having a good understanding about what is happening in my organisation, what is happening with the systems, what systems have I introduced, where is the data going, where does it get captured, where does it get sent, and bringing the workforce on the journey. So having that work design capability uplift across my organisation, process changes, really being able to own it, and as a leader being able to talk to it and being able to support the workforce with that.
I guess one of the things that I've seen that everyone is grappling with at a senior, not everyone, but a lot of the people that I've spoken to in senior roles is AI is becoming part of sort of everyday work, but they're grappling with whether they need to become technical experts and how much knowledge they need to be able to implement AI systems, and what does executive AI literacy actually look like?
I think this is a really interesting one because as an individual, I want to know all these AI tools.
Yeah.
But again, there's a new tool out every week.
Yes, you can't keep
AI
up.
can make AI.
Yes.
So, AI can make it a new system.
Yeah.
So we've never before expected executives to know how to do someone else's jobs completely, because why would we have that other person if the executive could do it?
Yeah.
We don't necessarily expect an executive to know every tool in their workforce. We don't say an executive of a construction company, they don't necessarily need to know how to use a digger.
No.
Why do we expect them to know every AI tool?
Don't know.
Especially the ones that they're never going to use. So literacy for me is understanding what AI can do, the different forms of AI,
Yep.
how AI can be integrated into the workplace, how it can be integrated with other systems, example, automation and robotics, what benefit that is for their organisation, and also being able to speak to those points then from a strategy perspective and into their workforce. So AI literacy for me, for an executive, is understanding the governance points well enough to be able to speak on all levels, to a regulator, to their shareholders, and to their workforce. They don't necessarily need to know how to create an agent in Claude.
Although that's fun. Yes. So I'm going to repeat this back and see if I've got this right.
Okay.
So you are saying literacy is what AI can do. This is for AI executives and AI literacy. What AI can do, the different forms of AI, how it can be, what it can do, how it can be integrated, the benefits of AI tools or the AI in the organisation, and be able to speak to those points to all stakeholders, essentially, as well as understanding the governance.
Yes. And when I talk about governance, I'm also talking about the safety side of it.
Yes,
So cybersecurity, psychosocial safety,
Psychosocial,
sociotechnical risks. So really not just being able to talk to it, but understand what that means.
Still a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot. Yeah. But much better than, needing to know how do I make an avatar of myself that dances across the room. And,
absolutely. But which again is fun. But so that's really good. So I guess, if there was a CEO or a senior leader, what questions should they be asking around AI when it comes to governance, I guess? If you could give them, the top level.
Well, the first question is, where is AI currently being used in my organisation?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard the term shadow AI, but there's a lot of that happening. And the reason that happens is because people aren't given authority to use AI.
Yes.
Or to talk about how they're using AI. So on two different levels, I guess you can see this in the schools.
Yeah.
Schools we're told we're not allowed to use AI. So of course the students are going to use AI. They're just not going to use it in a way that they're going to get caught using AI. Same in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
One of the larger organisations I was consulting to a couple of years ago, when generative AI really started kicking off, there was a policy directive saying no one in this organisation is to use AI.
Wow.
Absolutely not. And now, of course, they've rolled it out in a way. But really understanding where is AI being used in my organisation and what is acceptable use of the AI in my organisation. What does cybersecurity look like for each of those applications?
Yep.
I've started developing for my own workplace a AI register, an AI tool register, saying this is the AI tool that I'm using. This is how I've registered with it.
Yeah.
These are the policy guidelines around it. This is the cybersecurity risks for it. This is what it can do, et cetera, et cetera. And I heard a really good example not too long ago about one of the bigger banks here in Australia using AI and how they're applying AI. And I thought it was quite interesting because for me, the banking world is quite, well, there's a lot of risks, I should say. I was going to say they're risk adverse. They're not necessarily risk adverse, but there is a lot of risks, you're talking about, your customers' money.
Yeah.
So I would have thought that they would have been more risk adverse and less likely to take up AI. But actually the conversation that I was listening to, one of the tech people that worked in that organisation, we're talking about they have a register for AI in like a Slack channel or something where they're talking about how they're using AI in the organisation and, did anyone see this tool? And so they can talk about a tool and then the security team can say, if you're going to use that tool in the organisation, you need to register in this way and, whatever. They have a sandpit environment so that their workers can go into the sandpit and use the tool and play with the tool so that it doesn't affect any systems or financial records or anything. And then they can share their experience with that. The other thing for a large organisation like a bank, like one of the big banks, is they've got teams all over the country, different teams, and they're working on different projects. And like any large organisation, they don't all talk to each other very well, from one department to another. Sometimes it's not until you hear about it on the news or from someone else that you think, oh, we're doing that. Oh, yeah, we're doing that. Oh, good. Yeah, I was just working on that and I couldn't find anyone in the organisation to do that. So, they've set up this process where they can talk about it and they might learn from another team that they didn't even realise were using a similar product or have already implemented the AI system. So, yes, setting up processes in place to allow employees to be able to do that, setting up the guardrails, for how we're using AI and the sandbox environment so that people can have autonomy to be able to play and use different tools. Yeah. And then work out the blueprint for that and the strategy. How are we going to implement this to the organisation? What does our work design look like, et cetera, et cetera.
So if you're starting off right now, I'd say that there's many employees using AI that you don't know about. So you need to have an AI amnesty. You will not get in trouble, but tell us how you're using it and then go and play in the sandpit.
Yes, in the sandpit, exactly.
And meet your friends and see what you can create, I guess.
And let us know.
Let us know.
And then then you can work towards the strategy of whether you're going to implement that or not.
Yeah. I think we've talked about human in the loop and what that really means. But I guess when it comes to AI and when AI is involved in a decision, what you're saying is the responsibility needs to sit with the human.
Yes, 100%.
100% of the time.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there are some decisions. So I say 100%, and now I'm going to backflip on that.
That's okay. You can do that.
There are some decisions, basic decisions, that an AI doesn't necessarily. A human doesn't need to be in the loop. For example, you've got a security card. You're coming into the workplace. You scan your card. The system says, yes, that's Sandra. We recognise her. She's still an employee at this organisation. We'll let her in the front door. A human does not need to be there to say, okay, yep, you've made the right decision. So, there are exceptions to that. Yeah. But any decision that an AI tool makes needs to be recorded somewhere so that we can go back and review those decisions. Yeah. We need to have clear understanding of why decisions were made.
Yes, the why. Yeah.
How they were made.
Yeah.
And how they were implemented.
Yeah.
More complex decisions with higher risks. I would suggest are those ones that definitely need the human oversight and the authority to be able to say yes.
Yeah.
But we definitely need someone who owns the decisions that have been made. My example there, you would have potentially a security person or something that would own that decision making, and they would be able to go back and say, okay, yes, X, Y, and Z. Review the camera footage, and oh no, someone's using Sandra's car. They've come in, and there was a breach.
This has happened. This is why it's happened. But let's actually, double check that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. The big question. Everyone's asking, will AI replace jobs? Do we have a dystopian future where no one will be working and everyone will be unemployed? What do you think?
I mean, it could either be dystopian or utopia, really, depending on how we set things up.
Yeah, correct.
Definitely dystopian if we don't set things up properly. And let's just go on the whole path of AI's taking over everyone's jobs. That could work well for us if we set things up appropriately. For example, if we are charging system owners to be able to put their data centres into Australia for them to have Australians using their systems, etc. Because at the moment we're offshoring a lot of that. So say we remove all of the workers and we just have AI and robotics running and Australia owns none of that. Then where is the wealth going? Productivity's happening. Things are being produced, resources are getting dug out of the ground, whatever that might look like. But all of the wealth is leaving, sure. So that's a risk. The opposite of that is, we could start to set up regulations and strategy around how are we charging for people to be able to use our resources and our people and, for their AI to be in our system, for them to put a data center, next to our schools, for example. Yeah. Another question there, like, would we actually need schools if no one's actually going to be working too much and we're sending them off? But, ideally that's not going to happen. And the idea is, the whole idea about human authority work design is that we will have people leading the way and they're using machines to amplify them, so systems to amplify their work rather than replace them. Do I think that AI could take over? Potentially. Maybe we're not quite there yet. Yeah. But there is definitely an opportunity where it could. And if you listen to creators of AI, they are showing some anxiety. Yeah. I read a report just last week, actually. A lot of the, like Sam Altman, a lot of the leaders of some of the big AI companies were saying exactly that. And they were saying we're at an inflection point and, we probably need to go back and turn things off and rewind. There was some concerns over where AI was headed, particularly when we're thinking about general intelligence AI and they start to get, think like a human. Yeah. And then last week they said, actually, it's probably not going to be as bad as what it thinks. God. And I think one of the reasons for that is it's pretty bad for business when we say what we're doing is going to end society as we know it. Yeah. So it's a pretty bad business model to say, we've made the greatest tool ever and it's, it's going to eradicate jobs. So that's probably one of the reasons. We're also seeing people stand up, at university, and AI is not being received very well. All the conversations around AI is not being received very well. So that could be another reason, for the backflip. So I think, for me, it's concerning that there are creators of AI that think that potentially it is going to be a problem. And I definitely think that it has the power to be able to take a lot of jobs. It also has the opportunity to be able to create a lot of work in a different way. Yeah. And, it means that we need to think about things a little bit differently to how we were. Yeah. We need to think about new jobs that we can create. There's an opportunity for people who maybe couldn't get into the workforce before that can now get into the workforce in a different way. Yeah. You can create an app. You don't need to be a coder anymore. No. You can do a whole bunch of things that maybe you couldn't do before. Yeah. The problem with that, of course, is that the output might not be so fantastic from people who don't necessarily have skills or education behind them, who are creating things that look on the outset to be legit, and then when you dive into it. So that's a really long way of saying, I'm optimistic about the future. And again, I think we've got an opportunity to be able to create the future that we want. Yeah. But if we don't grab that opportunity and we don't look at work design, we don't look at how we can upskill people and bring people along on that. We potentially are going to have a lot of people who either have jobs that don't provide them any meaning and purpose, or we have a society that a lot of potentially low socioeconomic areas get greater.
Yep.
And we see people on the other end of the scale, the system owners and people.
The wealth divide.
Yes.
Yeah.
We start seeing that wealth divide increase.
Which is it's pretty huge already. So,
yes.
Yeah. I think one of the things I've noticed is the human standing up against AI. Definitely. I think Meta released something last week where it was where you could alter other people's imagery and took it back straight away because of the pushback on that. So there is, this gives me hope, so let me dream, is that the humans are actually saying no, that's enough. We've trialled some different sort of AI avatars and stuff through, different aspects of our business, and the pushback is huge. And even, I've got teenage girls, and when I use AI, the AI, they are saying to me, stop using it. No. They don't like it. So I like to believe that there is going to be a greater value on human output than there is right now, and greater value on creativity and creators. So that's, my utopian dream.
Yes.
So let me sit with that.
I agree. And we didn't really talk about ethics. And I think one way that we can lead as humans is by thinking about our own values and our own ethics, and not using tools from system owners who might not have the same ethics as you. So if we're not using their tools, they're not making the money, they're not, they're not producing things. There are some who don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care what it means for human life or for human values and what gets destroyed along the way. There are other companies who are showing some really decent human values and ethics. And as a consumer, you've got the opportunity to be able to lead the way through your purse, basically, by using the system or not.
Using the system or not, I think that's, that's probably something an individual can look at, right, and do. So, wow, that's a really big topic. So we will keep going forever if we keep going down that path. So we've talked about what you see. I think I had one of the questions was how you see AI being introduced well and what is different. But I think you've covered all that with how leaders can be transparent within the workforce. So I think what we'll do is close this off. Otherwise, I think we'd sit here all day talking because it's just fascinating. If you could leave leaders with one thing as they navigate AI and AI implementation into their workforce, what would it be?
I think firstly, I would like to say that we're all leaders in some way, or we all have the opportunity to be a leader in some way. So you have an opportunity to lead your own life and lead your world and lead it well. So you don't have to be in a leadership role to be a leader necessarily.
Yes.
So I think that is probably, I know it wasn't the question.
That's a good answer though.
But I think with AI, we have even more of an opportunity as leaders. As an individual to be a leader and to be able to make the correct choices in the world based on the best thing for yourself and for the society that you live in. And consider any tool that you use, AI or otherwise, as exactly that, a tool that enhances what you're doing and your contribution to the world.
That was a great answer. Thank you, Peter. Thank you for coming along and being on Workplace Conversations. This conversation could have lasted hours if we had more coffee. But again, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks, Sandra.